Who told you that Israel never loses? Who told you that only Iran is suffering? You won't believe the size of the bill Israel has paid so far in its war against Iran. You won't believe the scale of the numbers. We gathered everything we could find that Tel Aviv is trying to hide from the world, and we will present it to you with the full story and all the details.
Oh my God!
On a single night, during the Iranian drone and missile attack, Israel was forced to burn more than $1.3 billion. This staggering figure was just to cover the costs of air defense for a few hours. We are talking about the launch of dozens of ballistic missiles from the HETS system, which costs about $3.5 million per missile, alongside the David's Sling missiles, costing over $1 million for each interception. But military censorship in Tel Aviv hides the other half of the disaster: the astronomical financial drain caused by offensive air sorties deep into Iranian territory. A single operation to strike targets more than 1,500 kilometers away, flying a massive fleet of over 100 fighter jets requires the F-35 stealth fighter, known in Israel as the Adir, costs more than $36,000 per hour of flight, and alongside it, F-15 and F-16 fighters forming the spearhead. But fighter jets don't fly alone to Tehran. The fleet needs Boeing aircraft for aerial refueling in hostile airspace, Nakshan aircraft for early warning and electronic warfare to jam radars. Add to that precision-guided munitions designed to penetrate fortifications, like Rampage missiles worth tens of millions in a single strike. If we combine the billion-dollar cost of defense with the expense of complex offense, Israel is paying the price of a double war, draining its economy to the last breath. It is an unprecedented financial hemorrhage in the history of the Israeli military. The Bank of Israel is forced to burn through its foreign currency reserves to finance this offensive. And the losses don't stop there. The Israeli military police scissors operate around the clock to conceal the true extent of the damage inflicted on the strategic infrastructure. But commercial satellite images exposed the truth and revealed the disaster. Iranian strikes did not all land in open areas, as Tel Aviv claims. Advanced ballistic missiles penetrated the defenses of the Iron Dome and David's Sling to drop tons of explosives on the most sacred Israeli airbases. The Nevatim base in the Negev desert was the scene of horrific and documented destruction. This base is the crown jewel of the Air Force and the home of the F-35 stealth fighters. The images showed direct damage to the runways and aircraft hangars. The issue was not limited to Nevatim, but also extended to the sensitive Ramon Air Base. Even intelligence and espionage headquarters were not spared from this breach. The strikes were concentrated around the Glilat base north of Tel Aviv. It is the headquarters of Unit 8200, responsible for cyber espionage, the headquarters of Mossad, considered the mastermind behind foreign operations. The rockets fell within these security zones, fortified both geographically and technologically. It is, in itself, a military earthquake that completely shatters Israel's deterrence. So, Tel Aviv prevents journalists and citizens from approaching or filming these sites. Harsh prison sentences are imposed on anyone who leaks a single shot of the destruction. They settle for posting pictures of small potholes in the streets to downplay the scale of the attack. But the fact is that Israel's military infrastructure suffered humiliating blows. It requires many months and substantial additional budgets to restore and rehabilitate it. But the greater disaster for Israel is not limited to the destruction of military bases. It extends to strike the sensitive core, the domestic front, and the state economy. An entire country came to a complete standstill with the daily rhythm of life grinding to a halt. Millions of Israelis rushed in fear toward the dark shelters. Air traffic came to a halt, and airlines canceled their flights. Along with it, the idea of Israel as a safe haven would be shattered. Amid this panic and paralysis, the human losses that Tel Aviv desperately tries to conceal come to light. Israeli hospitals received more than 1,000 wounded and injured. Casualties fell among the settlers in the shelters, as happened in the city of Beit Shemesh. It is also reasonable to ask about the number of soldiers and officers inside the targeted bases. Israel imposes strict and tight blackout measures on it. Leaking any information or numbers about casualties in military uniforms is prohibited. So the title becomes, Let Us Suffer in Silence. For many years, Israel sold the world a grand illusion called absolute deterrence. It marketed itself as a security pharmacy holding the antidote to protect all vulnerable systems. Thanks to this illusion, Tel Aviv achieved record numbers in arms exports, to surpass $13 billion in sales within just 1 year. It ranks as the 9th largest arms supplier in the world. Companies like Elbit Systems and Rafael Advanced Defense Systems experienced their golden era. But the night of the Iranian attack turned this financial empire upside down, when the entire planet watched the most expensive defense systems in history collapse, and how the Arrow radars and David's Sling failed to secure an airspace that is very small in size. If it weren't for the support of planes and warships from an international coalition forming a technical and logistical barrier, today the sky over Tel Aviv would be nothing but black ash. What happened was not just a military breach, but a deliberate dismantling of a brand. A registered trademark called the tried and tested Israeli weapon, proven in battles. The question haunting Tel Aviv's leaders today in their closed rooms is this: who would buy a defense system that failed to protect its own base? Who would trust an army that requires the mobilization of great powers to repel a declared and timed attack? Israel has shifted in the eyes of its clients and allies from a formidable regional guardian to a heavy strategic burden that itself requires protection and defense to ensure its survival. This strike could have significant consequences for the future of its military industries. But in the end, we need to be precise and analyze the situation without letting enthusiasm cloud our judgment. All this financial, human, and military loss that we have revealed with the numbers does not mean at all that Israel has collapsed or been wiped off the map, or that its army was defeated, as the opposing side, Iran, claims. It remains an offensive initiative, equipped with a formidable destructive and technological capability. At the same time, it is important to expose what Israel is trying to promote. It tries to convince the world that Tel Aviv fought a clean war and emerged unscathed, and that it did not pay any price for all this military recklessness. The facts show that Israel suffered greatly and paid a heavy price. It shattered its prestige, crushed its economy, and quietly buried dozens of its soldiers. And certainly we know the scale of this price and those Israeli losses. It may not compare to the scale of catastrophic destruction and the heavy toll paid by Iran. But the most important takeaway from this historic confrontation is breaking the mold. Israel is no longer the invincible power that strikes without being struck. For the first time, you are forced to pay a real and painful price, to finally realize that the era of free wars and easy victories is over,